So welcome everyone. My name is Chris Kerr. I'm the Executive Director of the Ignatian Solidarity Network. For those who aren't familiar with ISN, we're a national social justice education advocacy organization that works with Jesuit universities, high schools, parishes, social ministries across the U.S. And I'm excited to talk with you all today about Alta Gracia and this partnership that we've developed with Ethics Merch and with Alta Gracia. And it's exciting to see folks from all over the country, just to give you a sense of where people are coming from today. In case you're curious, we have folks from Brophy Prep in Arizona, Bellarmine Prep in San Jose, Xavier Prep in Palm Desert, St. John's Jesuit in Toledo, St. Louis University High School, Boston College, Marquette University, Spring Hill College, Bishop O'Dowd High School, Loyola Academy, Marquette University, Fordham University, Creighton University, St. Joseph's University, and Cristo Rey High School in Baltimore, who are all joining us or supposed to be joining us. And there is the great bells of Bellarmine Prep there in San Jose. Thank you for that. One of the challenges that in my work with secondary and higher ed in the Catholic realm, and especially in Jesuit education over the past 15 years or so, is how do we create opportunities for making ethical decisions with our purchasing, especially as institutions? How do we live out our mission, not just in the many great ways that we do, but also in what we buy and how those who are creating those products are treated? How are they paid? What kind of conditions do they have to work in? How is their livelihood enhanced through their work? It's been a huge challenge, and so this opportunity to work with Alta Gracia and to work with Ethics Merch is really, it's just that. It's an opportunity. The Alta Gracia being the only factory of its kind, apparel factory of its kind in the global South, creates an opportunity for consumers here in the U.S. affiliated with institutions to engage their high school, their university, in a very proactive way of supporting the rights and dignity of apparel workers in another part of the world. And so for that reason, we joined into this partnership. And the interesting thing about Alta Gracia is there are a number of kind of Jesuit connections, if you will, to the Alta Gracia products. One, if you walk into almost every Jesuit university bookstore, you will find a rack or more, hopefully, of Alta Gracia clothing, licensed apparel. So like Fairfield Stags or Santa Clara Broncos or whatever other team it is, Boston College Eagles, you'll find that Alta Gracia product in the bookstore. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the relationship between Alta Gracia and the Workers' Rights Consortium. The Workers' Rights Consortium is an international NGO that does analysis of what's happening in apparel factories that produce clothing for colleges and universities, licensed apparel. And the Workers' Rights Consortium, which Rachel can talk about this maybe a smidge more, but is the one who provides validation of the living wage that are earned by the Alta Gracia workers, the health and safety standards, the ability of the workers to form and be part of a union. And so it's a really unique relationship that the Workers' Rights Consortium has to be able to do this. You know, they represent universities and colleges. They don't represent corporations. So their ability to independently look at what's going on in Alta Gracia and say, Alta Gracia is extremely unique. The only factory of its kind in the global South is really special. And almost every Jesuit university in the country is a member of the Workers' Rights Consortium. So the Jesuit institutions are very bought into this. Finally, there are two faculty at Georgetown University that have done a number of produced a number of research papers about Alta Gracia, looking at the model of the factory, the social impact of the factory on the community. So how is the factory enhancing health and education and other standards, quality of living standards in the Dominican where the factory is. And these are not just kind of bleeding heart sociologists or something like that. One of them is in the McDonough School of Business, so has done some very serious analysis of this business model and trying to make sure that it's an effective model, a sustainable model, and so that's another piece that you can kind of go and look at that research and understand in a much more in-depth way what's happening at Alta Gracia and what is the impact of it. So for all these reasons, we're excited to be working, with Ethics Merch and with Alta Gracia to bring more attention to this model, to also bring more business. I've met the Alta Gracia workers in the past, and they love the interactions, the opportunity. And we might try to do a speakers tour in the fall where we bring a couple of folks who work in the factory to the U.S. to visit campuses. They love those interchanges, the opportunity to talk about the factory, to talk about their life in the Dominican. But they also say that it's a business, and they need our support by our orders. Our procurement of their products makes a statement about what we care about, and so we really want to. That's where this needs to go. The sense of solidarity and concern is great, but our actions speak as loud as our words will. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, who works directly with Alta Gracia. She's visited the factory. I don't know how many times, Rachel, you've been to the Dominican. And so I'm going to turn your volume up here so that you can talk. Let me figure that out. And I'll get your page going here in a second.
All
okay?
Right. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for being on the call today. And I really want to echo what Chris said, that, the fact that we're still in business, 5 years in, really, when people said that this kind of a factory wouldn't be possible, is because of schools like the ones that you work at, really directly putting their support behind us. So, that's the video. That's okay. Just real quick, I'm going to give an overview of what Alta Gracia is and how it came to be. So Alta Gracia is a t-shirt and hoodie, apparel company sold in over 1,000 bookstores nationwide. But what really sets Alta Gracia apart is that, as Chris pointed out, is the first and only factory of its kind to pay workers a true living wage. And Chris, if you want to just shoot down to the third page, this has the talking points that we often cover visually. I don't know if people are visual or audio people. But yeah, at Alta Gracia, a living wage of more than 3 times the standard garment factory pay is paid to workers. And this wage was calculated independently by the Worker Rights Consortium, a fabulous nonprofit that never takes any corporate funding. They're fully funded by schools and are very accountable to students and labor experts and people who really care about worker rights. So anyways, that living wage has had a profound impact in the community. Chris, I don't know if you could shoot down to the 6th or 7th slide. I can just tell you some stories of some people I know and work with. This woman, her name is Clary, and this here is her laundromat. The woman in the center, is an employee of Alta Gracia, but because they're paid a living wage that's over 3 times what is normally paid, she was able to open an additional business where her husband and this other gentleman work. So it's literally fueling, local business in the economy, creating jobs. Another really important thing, the woman on the slide before, Yenny, her 2 daughters are in college. You can see her on the left here in this poster. This is her about 15 years ago when she was a young single mother, just trying to even get a union in her factory, being very disrespected. The stories I hear her tell is that she wasn't even able to see her children because she was working so many hours just to make ends meet. And now her 2 daughters are in college. So, there's a very concrete impact of Alta Gracia, and it's a huge ripple effect. And it is about how the workers are treated on the job, which I can continue talking about in a moment, but it's even bigger than that. It's about this whole community of Villa Alta Gracia in the Dominican Republic, where the factory operates, but it's more importantly about signaling to the industry that change is possible, that change must happen, that's what consumers want. So the standard at Alta Gracia, if you could go back to the 3rd slide, Chris, thanks. Is that, not only does Alta Gracia pay this fabulous living wage that, covers healthcare and nutritious food and clean drinking water and a home and access to education and, a full health benefits package for the family. But, unlike most garment factories, it offers safe and healthy conditions on the job. I know many of you just last Friday probably commemorated the Rana Plaza collapse in Bangladesh, the worst industrial accident in history, in which over 1,000 garment workers died sewing, apparel bound for the U.S. market. And so, not only is this tragic, but, these kind of tragedies are ongoing in the industry. And so showing that a factory can have top-notch health and safety conditions, is really powerful. Alta Gracia did a consultation with a Bay Area nonprofit called the Maquiladora Health and Safety Support Network before it even opened its doors. And I mean, they have clear fire exits. They're the only garment factory I've ever heard of that does, emergency evacuation drills. They have a worker-run safety committee that constantly is checking machines and, no CPR, does trainings, and it's just really fabulous. Also at Alta Gracia, workers have, freedom of association, so they formed their own union, which is yet another check and balance on the company. I'm really proud that that union is almost entirely led by women, which is very exceptional in the Dominican Republic and honestly in the labor movement in general. So that's pretty cool. And also, as Chris mentioned, Alta Gracia is monitored by the Worker Rights Consortium. Even though Worker Rights Consortium takes no money from Alta Gracia, there's a huge, open door policy. So Worker Rights Consortium representatives are in there twice a week, checking the payroll, talking to workers in safe spaces in their homes where they can report what's really going on. They'll be, testing the health and safety conditions too. So it's just a level of accountability that is so far unparalleled. But we hope that other companies will kind of imitate us, this project in the long run. Also just like some quick history about how it came to be. Is that students and universities really engaging around this issue are the reason why Alta Gracia came to exist in the first place, and the reason that it continues to exist. If you've ever heard of the group United Students Against Sweatshops, they've been very active in running campaigns against brands that have been abusive of garment worker rights. They're currently in a campaign against JanSport. And it was pretty interesting because in 2010, they had won a huge campaign to hold Nike accountable to a case of wage theft, and also a company named Russell, and in which they lost these companies huge contracts and millions of dollars for abusing workers' rights. And, one company kind of saw this and was like, well, why not do the right thing and get access to this market? So what I think is very unique about Alta Gracia is that there are, corporate social responsibility initiatives these days are a dime a dozen. There's tons of things out there that say they're doing the right thing. What I think is so powerful about Alta Gracia is that when it was set up, workers and students and activists, the Worker Rights Consortium, all sat down at the table and negotiated with the company about what exactly the conditions would be. Today, Alta Gracia is sold in thousands of bookstores. There's some fun photos of that at the bottom, Chris. I don't know if you want to scroll down. Notre Dame, yeah, I love this one at Occidental. You can see at Duke, at the very beginning, there was a photo at Ohio State. There's just huge swaths of Alta Gracia in the bookstore, which is really great. Notre Dame's a great example, and Georgetown as well. For the last 4 years at Notre Dame, they've chosen Alta Gracia for their huge Spirit Tea program that they give to alumni and fans called The Shirt. They wear the same shirt for a certain football game at Georgetown. Yeah, this is it. And it was really cool. This shirt was given to Alta Gracia in a year that USAS, United Students Against Sweatshops, was campaigning Adidas against a case of wage theft in Indonesia. And, it was kind of great to be able to take that business away from a company that was doing, not doing right by workers, but really signal to the industry by giving that to a company that is. So that's the kind of institutional purchasing changes, and the kind of power that this initiative has. Georgetown University, gave every incoming freshman an Alta Gracia t-shirt, last fall. So there's incredible things going on, and we're really excited to kind of even bring this, to a bigger level, getting more churches and people involved and working with the great folks at Ethics. So.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Rachel. I think what we'll do to allow some, make sure we have plenty of time for questions, is that we'll flip over to Daniel for a second, and then we'll go from there, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I want to say, so on this call, we have on this video call today, amongst the schools I listed off earlier, we have over, if we took the undergraduate populations of the colleges and universities and the populations of the high schools, student populations of the high schools, we have over, the institutions collectively represent 45,000 plus undergraduate and high school students collectively amongst those 13 schools. So one of the reasons that ethics, I think I can say this, Daniel, one of the reasons that ethics approached us was the interest in, in really kind of tapping into this network of 28 universities, 57 high schools, and many other parishes and other ministries and things like that. So Daniel is going to talk a little bit about from the Ethics merch site. Ethics merch is the main distributor here in the U.S. of Alta Gracia apparel that's not coming as licensed apparel that you find in a bookstore or something like that. So we're gonna flip it over to Daniel here in a second once I can hunt him down on the list. There we go. And how do I do that? Oops, I gotta hold on. I'm still, admittedly, I'm still learning this this software. I gotta figure out how I turn off. More. Here we go.
I just unmuted myself.
Unmute yourself. Good. All right. Well, why don't you start talking, and I'll get the ethics site up here in 1 second. All right.
Okay.
Are you actually? I'm gonna turn it over to you in 1 second. But why don't you start talking while I figure out how I do that? Okay.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for including me in the call. This is really exciting. I know I've worked with a lot of your institutions in the past. And Chris mentioned one of the reasons why ethics reached out to ISN about this opportunity was because we were interested in tapping into the Jesuit sort of network of schools, which is true, but it's also true that Jesuit schools in particular have been better and more reliable at reaching out to us than any other sort of college that there is, really. And we noticed that pattern, and which is why we wanted to see if we could get a little bit more organized about connecting groups who are already interested in socially responsible merchandise and companies like Alta Gracia to get the ordering process easier so that more of it happens and there's more orders for the wonderful people that Rachel showed you. So I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about ethics just because it's a little bit slippery what we do. You can say that we're sort of along the lines of your local screen printer. That's kind of what we do. We're a little bit more than that. We do not just printing, but we procure the merchandise as well. And we do more than just apparel. We do other items that you might want your school or your group's logo on. Is there a way for me to share my screen yet, Chris?
Yeah, actually I'm gonna, I think you should have, there
Is
you
that
go.
working?
Yep.
All right, great. So this is Ethics Ventures website, which is our umbrella company. And underneath you'll see two things. One is Ethics Merch, which does our our whole merchandising. And then Works is our printer partner. So whereas your local printer might print on Alta Gracia or other socially conscious goods if you want them to, what ethics does is that's all that we do. We don't sort of partner with groups that are interested in being socially responsible and then get them sweatshop free stuff and then work with people who don't care and get them the traditional Gildan or other stuff where the Worker Rights Consortium hasn't been, and you don't know what the conditions are in those factories. So we're part of a movement here, and we partnered with Works, and we were actually instrumental in the creation of Works, which is a direct printer. And they are not only unionized, but they're a worker-owned cooperative. So the bottom line here is that if you get your Alta Gracia merchandise from Ethics for your group, not only are you getting fantastic Alta Gracia apparel, but you're also getting it printed by a worker-owned cooperative. And this is just a little video of the Works printing doing their thing. And I'll just play it for a few seconds so you can see a little bit of the process. So that's ethics and that's works. I wanted to go a little bit into how it actually works from a logistical standpoint. How do you get your group's logo or information onto an Alta Gracia shirt? You start off by going to ethicsmerch.com, where we have a whole bunch of sweatshop-free merchandise. And then you go to our t-shirt page, and there's the section on Alta Gracia right here. You can read about it here. And then from there, you can see pricing, order a sample, and then you can see the special order page where it has all the colors listed. And then your next step would be just to contact me or contact another rep at Ethics. You call this number, and then you hit extension 9 for me or extension 1 if you're on the East Coast. And then we pretty much just go back and forth like you would with your local printer. We can get you blank Alta Gracia merchandise if you already have a relationship established with your printer. And yeah, it's sort of a back and forth process until you have what you need, and then we process the order. Like I said, I know a lot of your institutions have already ordered through Ethics. And then the last thing I want to say is what's coming up in the future is an opportunity for your groups to do online design. So this is coming up in the next month or so. You'll be able to plug in your logo and see exactly how it looks yourself on an Alta Gracia shirt. And then furthermore, people will be able to have their own sort of organizational pages so that individual members of your groups can go onto that page and actually place individual orders that will come from the larger order that you place with Ethics. So I'll get that information out once it's available through Chris, and happy to answer any other questions.
Great. Well, thanks, Daniel and Rachel for those overviews, and I think we'll throw it back here to the faces. But do we have any questions? What I'll do is I think this is right. I'll unmute folks here for a second, and then or actually what you can do is on your little Zoom box, there's something that says raise hand, and actually if you just click on that, like I can allow you to ask a question. Or if you want to just use the chat feature, you can also chat us a question that way. While folks are thinking about questions, though, Daniel, maybe you can tell us just in terms of color availability. You talked about the spread of colors, but I know it's true that some colors are right now are more easily available than others. Can you talk a little bit about shirt color and how that works?
Sure. So Alta Gracia, as has been mentioned, is predominantly available in college bookstores right now. And the Blanks program for organizations to get their stuff printed is sort of nascent. We're trying to grow it, right? So what's available right now in large quantities is black, white, and steel gray. So those Ethics has warehoused, and we can just take it off the shelf and print it. The other colors are sort of depending on what Alta Gracia has going at the time with their bookstore orders. And so the other colors can take a little bit longer, but certain colors like red or royal blue or common colors tend to be pretty readily available anyway. So we'd love to push people towards those colors, black, white, steel gray, if we can. That's most helpful right now, but we can get almost anything.
Great. All right, I'm going to turn it over. We got a question from Father Don McMillan at Boston College, and so I'm going to I am trying to let I'm still learning this this software, so I apologize, but I know he's got a question. Let's see.
I think he should be able to unmute himself, huh?
Yeah, if you just unmute, Don, you can put that out there. Is that working for you? Let's see. You just click on the microphone there on your Zoom.
Lower left.
Yeah, lower left.
Or if that's not working, you could also click on the chat box and chat us the question.
I have a question if we're waiting.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So if I place an order, let's just say for 100 T-shirts, what is the rough turnaround time? And obviously it depends on the color. So if I had black, white, or steel gray, I'm just saying what with ethics. I've done work with ethics the last 3 years with Kevin O'Brien in our store here at Bellarmine in San Jose, California. So I know the company and they do a great job. But I'm just saying, just give me, is it probably a month?
It takes about 2 weeks to ship out, and then so it depends on where you are in the country from there. It ships from the East Coast. So it's about 3 weeks to the West Coast, about 2.5 weeks to the Midwest or the East Coast.
So so if I placed an order in an hour, I'm just saying, making this up, so I should expect 3 to 4 weeks it would probably arrive.
Yeah, it wouldn't really need to be longer than 3 weeks. That's the business that we're in, is quick turnaround, and that's what people want for their events. So,
thank you.
Great, and that was actually the same question that Don had at Boston College, was the turnaround time. So that's good.
Yeah, and we can also push. We can do rush orders. Like I said, that's our business, is to get people's stuff fast. So we can do expedited shipping. We have the printer right next door to us, Works Printing. So we can push things when needed for event dates.
And that's really unique, actually, to have the inventory right next to the printer. That's pretty unusual, because most most local printers are ordering in and then printing. So that does make the process very, very quick. Other questions? You can either unmute yourself or just chat it to us. Either way.
Can I just interject while we're waiting for questions?
Yes.
So I know that Ignatian Solidarity Network will also be working on some of these materials, but one thing that I found, especially on college campuses, and I would imagine it works similarly in high schools and congregations, is that when you have an educational event, it can be really galvanizing to the community to want to get behind this in a bigger way. And I really recommend that if Alta Gracia is new to the institution you work with, maybe have some kind of event, answer people's questions about it, and use that to kind of get things in the door. As Chris mentioned, we're considering doing a worker speaking tour in the fall. There's a lot that we have going on through a nonprofit called Solidarity Ignite that works behind this project. There's a great student-made documentary about Alta Gracia. I'd be happy to send that out. You can organize a Skype call directly with the garment workers themselves and hear their personal testimonies. And students have the opportunity this summer to travel to the Dominican Republic and learn, firsthand, which I would, maybe we could do a more formal partnership, working with ISN and Jesuit schools in the future. But for now, that could be a great way to kind of get some seeds of really, passionate young folks working around this. So I'm happy to send those resources out after the call, if that's helpful. And we can even brainstorm other ways that we might engage in this conversation now.
Yeah, and to that point, we've talked a lot about how, over the long term that we can support institutions that want to develop, ethical procurement policies for their school or university to really institutionalize a commitment to, ethical purchasing, ethical apparel, and things like that. And so there's a lot of support long term we could provide to especially students, doing organizing around that. We have a question from Palm Desert near Palm Springs, California, from the folks at Xavier Prep. They just want to clarify. So if we send a design in, you will screen the design onto an Alta Gracia tee. So in short, you can provide ethical working conditions for a custom T-shirt. So maybe Daniel, can you just tell us a little bit more about the worker cooperative there that you all have?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, that's exactly what we do. Go to ethicsmerch.com if you have a design, ethics with an X, merch.com. Call us or use the contact form and or email us your design, and then we'll put it together on a mock-up so you can see what it would look like on a shirt along with a quote, and that's sort of how the process works. Now, in terms of the ethics of it, we do one of two things. Either we take the Alta Gracia shirt and we send it to one of our union print partners, and then you have a union printed, living wage, union made T-shirt from Alta Gracia, which is fantastic. Or you go one step better and you go with our Works digital printing partner, and that's I'll say this. Once Alta Gracia starts making organic shirts, it will be impossible to get a more ethical shirt than you can get through this process, which is an Alta Gracia living wage shirt made in the Dominican Republic, union made, and then printed on a works t-shirt, which is printed by union workers using environmentally friendly inks, and a worker co-op there too. So it's really hard to beat that.
Yeah. Another question from Xavier Prep, and this maybe any of us could probably answer. Maybe what sort of obstacles have you encountered trying to change an institution's purchasing policies or practices?
I can respond to that, and I'm sure Daniel can too. A lot of times it's so funny because I studied economics in school, and you would think like, hey, this is a no-brainer. This is helping people. Tons of schools have been successful with it. It doesn't cost more than your average, t-shirt that you would go with instead of the same caliber quality. But sometimes there is resistance, and it has a little bit more to do with politics and personal relationships. I would imagine that it'd be a little easier at a Jesuit school where, most of the school supports these kind of values. But at a lot of schools I've worked with, I've seen that they have, like, I'll just use my own. I went to the University of Washington in Seattle, and they have a very, solid backdoor deal with Nike. Like, for instance, my president was on the Nike board, right? So it wasn't something that they were just like willing to do, seamlessly. It was something that we had to really engage students and faculty allies and people in the community around and make it so positive that there really was no other option but to support supporting Alta Gracia. I know Daniel's worked a lot with getting resolutions and institutional commitments too.
Yeah. That's back in my old days of sweatshop activism. But yeah, that's certainly one of the things that's most crucial in overcoming that institutional inertia, is to get something down on paper, something black and white that each individual group, when it wants to order, or each school can refer back to when they're trying to, say, increase orders of Alta Gracia in the bookstore, or outreach to groups or charities within the school to do it, is, look, we've said as a group, as an institution, that we're going to do this. So let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's walk the walk, right? But otherwise, people are fighting the battle every single time on every single order, and that gets to be exhausting, both organizationally and on budgets. And speaking of budgets, that's sort of the institutional issues that I come up against most, is when individual school organizations like ministries or orientations or whatever are ordering shirts. It's usually not, they're not considering Alta Gracia versus Nike or something of similar quality. They're considering Alta Gracia versus cheap Gildan or Hanes shirts, right? So what we have to overcome there is people actually expanding their budgets a little bit to ensure proper conditions for the garment workers where their clothes are made. And anytime you're dealing with expanding someone's budget, there's going to be some pushback. And that's where we need this organization to come into place, and some of these policies put in place. So that decision just has to be made once. And it's a hard decision, but it's what we need to do our part to end sweatshops.
And there's some great, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, make the comparison, for institutions, maybe for an athletic department that's deciding what type of football helmet to buy. There are multiple levels of helmets in terms of safety you can buy. Most schools choose to buy the one that is going to make sure their young men wearing that helmet are safest. Well, this is a way to respond to, the safety and dignity of an apparel worker. And so, to the point of kind of creating the budgetary space to do that, it is important.
I was going to just cite too, there was a young man who was very active with the Ignatian Solidarity Network at Seattle Prep, Andrew Herman. He's worked with all of us, who I think has like a really great success story about how he was able to get his school on board to source Alta Gracia. And we'd be happy to, I think all of us on this call are, we want to be a resource for you. We'd be happy to connect your students with him or with other students that we know that have been successful. We're happy to kind of share what we have known to work on other campuses. So, don't be afraid to stay in touch about this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Other questions?
Question, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, just the process. What does ethics merch? Do they call up Alta Gracia and say, hey, I need 300 small Navy T-shirts, 300 medium Navy T-shirts, 300 large Navy T-shirts, 300 extra large Navy T-shirts, and then they fill the order? Is it something like that? The connection between Alta Gracia, I mean, I was wondering how they work together.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. They would take the inventory off of their warehouse, which is in South Carolina, right, Rachel?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would send it to us to get printed. Ethics having worked with the organization that needs the shirt to make sure the design is right. And then we get it and ship it off. That's exactly how it works.
Great.
You guys can have the whole Alta Gracia PowerPoint after the call. How about that? I just saw that question.
Yeah, we can send it up. Absolutely. And we also have some great on our site about Alta Gracia, which I'll include that link for folks who haven't seen it. We have some great resources, kind of highlight the Georgetown University studies, as well as some of the videos that Rachel shared as well. And we have a great frequently asked questions page that could be shared with anyone who's thinking about ordering. It kind of addresses a lot of the questions you all have brought up in terms of color and size and things like that, that I think are often important to folks.
Maybe it's important.
Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Just to mention, we haven't talked about the special relationship that Ethics has set up with Ignatian Solidarity Network, which is that using Ethics to procure your Alta Gracia and have it printed for your event yields a donation back to Ignatian Solidarity Network to support all of their efforts.
Yeah. And we're in a lot of the resources that we'll receive in that partnership are going to go into continued work to do education on Alta Gracia, on labor rights, especially the rights of apparel workers. Continue to support those efforts so that we can bring this message and bring these sorts of opportunities to institutions. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Daniel.
So I saw a question in the chat window, which was asking if there was any Solidarity Immersion trips coming up. And yes, there are. I'll send that out after the call too, if you know young people who would like to come. We geared those trips, it's undergrads from across the country kind of coming. But there's no reason why, if one of your institutions is looking to do an alternative spring break, I don't see why we couldn't work together with the Ignatian Solidarity Network and you and the union and everybody that we have relationships down there with to bring a group. Actually, Creighton University visits Alta Gracia. Almost every semester, there's a group from Creighton that visits, and I think that's had a pretty profound impact in awareness around it in the school. Notre Dame visits every year, different schools, so we're more than happy if you have an existing trip that you want to visit the factory, we can work that in. There's a trip that goes every winter break and every summer under Solidarity Ignite. I just put the link in the chat window, we can sort that out. And I'm open to it if we wanted to plan, something in the future with Jesuit schools.
And for those, some of you may be familiar with Creighton University's ILAC, their Institute on Latin America and the Caribbean. So those are where most of the Creighton groups that are coming, that is a semester-long program that Creighton has in the Dominican, but they also host high school and university immersion experience groups for a week to 10-day experience in the Dominican, and many of those groups will end up making visits to the Alta Gracia factory. So that's another good resource if you're a staff person at an institution trying to develop an experience in the Dominican. That's a great, the ILAC Institute is a great resource. We can put you in touch with them, with folks there. They're great folks. And yeah, Rachel just put if you have the chat thing open, she just put the link to the delegations that the organization she works with, Solidarity Ignite, organizes, that are a great experience to really, it was one of the things that if you're going to visit the Dominican, is to get a sense of not just what's going on for folks at Alta Gracia, but also get some contrasting experiences, because we've painted a very good picture of labor rights that happens in Alta Gracia. Unfortunately, that is a tiny fraction of the reality of most apparel workers in the world. We face very harsh and challenging conditions each and every day. So.
And just to kind of dovetail on that, it's wild. On those trips, we'll meet with garment workers who are fighting back for their rights in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, in addition to the workers at Alta Gracia. But I was speaking with the local worker rights consortium representative, and he was saying that honestly, Caribbean garment workers are almost more privileged, than workers in Honduras, in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, where the vast majority of our apparel is being produced. And I think just to kind of bring it full circle, that the vision for what we're all working on together with Alta Gracia is not just to support this one business model, but to make a standard possible. And, if this can become successful, there's no limit. This could, be transferred to those other factories and support workers worldwide. So really thank you guys for all your support.
Yeah.
Question, I'm not looking after any names or anything. I'm just wondering, does Alta Gracia, do you have competitors out there?
So to be honest, and Daniel can answer this question too, but there's a lot of people with glossy flyers and pamphlets on social responsibility. It's a lot less common to find somebody that actually has workers' voice respected on the job through a union, that actually has an independent labor rights watchdog monitoring it and really puts its money where its mouth is. And I think that Alta Gracia has done that because of its roots with students and workers kind of being in the driver's seat of how it was going to play out. There are, Daniel can answer the question. There's other ethical initiatives, but I don't see anything out there that has met quite the standard that Alta Gracia has yet. And I hope that will change someday soon.
I would basically agree with that. There are some small worker cooperatives who make apparel that are scattered around the world, and those are great and worthy of support, but nothing that can accommodate a large-scale orders like Alta Gracia can do. The thing that I would put Alta Gracia up against in terms of ethics is union-made in the USA factories that also make T-shirts. But the future of the garment industry is certainly abroad. More than 90% of apparel is made outside the United States. So we absolutely need to do what we can do to support the factories that are trying to grow in the right way outside the United States.
Other questions? Let's see. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you to Daniel and Rachel for your time today and sharing with us, and for all the great questions from folks out there in TV land. I think, one of the things I'll do is Daniel shared his information, but what I'll do is I'll share contact information, some of the web links, Rachel's presentation, our resource page, the frequently asked questions page, so that everyone has all these different resources. And one of the things that we didn't say maybe, but Daniel, from an ethics standpoint in terms of the relationship with ISN, is it's just when you call ethics or when you fill out the form online, if you could just mention that you found your way to them through ISN, that helps us just keep track of the orders that are kind of connected with our network for sure. Though we know many of the great names on this call today, names of schools. So. But don't hesitate to reach out to me, with any questions, and I can direct you to Rachel or Daniel as needed, or to resources that you need. In helping to share this story of the Alta Gracia workers, I'd encourage you to watch the videos that we'll share from Rachel, that where you get to hear their voices and really understand a little bit of how the factory is impacting their lives, the lives of their families, the lives of their neighbors, their community members. Because I think that can often be the kind of the linchpin that opens people up to considering this opportunity. Like, as consumers, this is a very unique opportunity that we have to be able to support, a really strong labor rights situation for workers that is just not available. This is a really unique opportunity for us. So thanks to everyone for being with us today, and we'll send out those resources in a little bit, and really appreciate your time. All right.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Hey, Daniel.